This scandal around Prince Andrew just gets worse. The Queen's second son is already battling claims that he slept with a 17-year-old girl, pimped out to him by his friend, billionaire Jeffrey Epstein, later convicted of pedophilia. But that didn't stop the Prince from staying at his joint for a few more days. The Queen has effectively sacked Prince Andrew now, but alas, more embarrassment. Leaked emails show that the Prince used his taxpayer-funded role as Britain's trade envoy to help his business partner in a Luxembourg bank, not even an English one. And now the Prince has made the royal family such an issue in this month's British election that Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn is suggesting he'd like to get that family pruned.
What improvements do you think you'd like to see?
Well, I think the behaviour of individuals within the royal family is being looked at, shall we say. I do think the question of the size of the family and all that they do, but I do think the public as a whole would want to see those kind of changes, and the debate around the behaviour of Prince Andrew has actually brought that to the fore.
Joining me on Trending now is Craig Dillon of the social media agency Westminster Digital. He also worked on the leadership campaign of Boris Johnson, which is of course why Johnson is now Britain's Prime Minister. Craig, thank you so much indeed for your time. Is Prince Andrew blowing up the royal family?
I think he's given a very good masterclass in how not to handle PR. I think, if anything, he's made it worse. That interview was a complete disaster. And the worst thing about this is that actually, in the middle of an election, it was the perfect time to just sort of ignore it and let it go away. But the problem was that he couldn't just sit back. He had to get out there and tell people his side of the story. And I think that was a complete disaster.
But Craig, you know, from the social media response, which I'm sure you'd know better than me, is he doing damage to the palace, as I'm suggesting? Jeremy Corbyn's buying into this, for instance. Or is that, ironically, because judging from some of the newspaper accounts, Prince Charles, Prince William taking a very tough line, demanding the Queen, you know, giving the boot from the palace, all that kind of stuff. Is this, in fact, making the two people next in line for the throne seem strong?
It has, and I think it's given them a good opportunity to sort of explain the reason that they need to be in control now. And I think we've already seen it coming out that Charles is taking over a lot more of the roles of the Queen, and William's obviously taken a strong stance on it. But the problem is, it seems to be with the brothers, the siblings of the heirs to the throne seem to always have some problems going on in their lives. So it's not been great for the royal family over here. And I think the thing about it is that a lot of people just wanted to kind of forget about it, right? Because he's a prince and it's not really the same as like an actor or a Hollywood star. You can't just, you know, they can't just resign from public life and never be seen again. He's always going to stay a prince. But the fact that he went out and gave that interview in the big ballroom and it was a complete disaster, just brought it all back to the public front, and he's had to kind of step down now, you know, so...
Now, I've mentioned the British election in passing with that one, but in a week and a half, let's go to the main game. You've got Boris Johnson and the Conservatives. You're going to the polls. Boris Johnson started with a huge lead, and now he and the Conservatives still have a lead, but 3 of the latest 4 polls over the last couple of days show that lead's been cut. And one of them actually has Johnson's 13-point lead, which is very handy, halved to just 6 points ahead. Are you worried?
Polls are always very close, and we are not getting complacent at all. You know, when the opposition are literally promising everything they can ever promise to the public, we would expect there to be some shifts in the polls. But especially with the recent, you know, Corbyn coming out and basically defending terrorism and things like that, you know, that's not been a great response, and a lot of people that sort of swayed their opinion. But you know, when you're promising all sorts of things to these people, they're likely to sort of change their opinion, you know. Yeah,
but you know, if you're on the Conservative side, you're going to be having nightmares that this could be a rerun of the Theresa May election. I don't actually think it's going to be that bad, but you know, Theresa May started way in front, and ended up nearly out on her ear in a minority government. And this is even before we see how the terrorist attack in London on Friday plays out, you know, where you got the former chief prosecutor for North West England saying he personally warned Johnson 3 years ago against releasing jihadists who weren't properly de-radicalised. Do you think that Johnson could do a Theresa May and blow this up?
No, I don't think so at all. They're very different candidates, and I think Boris has a clear message and a great manifesto, and I think the message is really resonating. And what we're seeing as well is that, you know, I've been all over the country with Westminster Digital, and we've been working with lots of candidates, and the clear thing that's coming out is that the majority of people, especially from working class backgrounds, those entrepreneurial people, the ambitious people, all want to back Boris because they want to get Brexit done, and they want to move on from this. We are sick of Brexit over here. So I think that's the clear message that's coming out, and the fact that Corbyn's going and saying, you know, we're going to do another referendum and then, you know, go take to people, is just people who do not want that message at all. And I think often what's happening is that the metropolitan types are getting caught up in Corbyn, and they, you know, can get their messages out on the media and social media and things like that. But actually the average working class person who goes to work every day and just wants the country to be better for them is backing Boris, and those are the people that we want.
Now, Craig Dillon, you're part of this social media company. You help Boris on social media. There's something really interesting, I think, that may be going on. We saw it with Trump. Trump was a master of social media, and in the last election in Australia, the Liberal Party is normally rubbish at that kind of stuff, actually beat Labor on the social media front. And I'm just wondering whether that's a wider thing here, that the Conservatives, who generally have been pretty slow in the uptake in that kind of campaigning, are now on top of it. What's happening in Britain? Are you ahead or behind?
Oh, miles ahead, of course. But I think what's happening with the Conservative social media is that because they're everywhere across the... exactly. But everywhere across the world, because Conservatives were so far behind on their digital campaign, they've really had to, you know, make big changes, and that's usually meant letting the young guys take over. And we saw that in Australia with the guys over there taking over and running it really effectively. Same over here. Whereas in the other parties that have been okay at social media, they haven't really had to have that much of a sort of upheaval. So, yeah, things are going very well on social media here. We've had some really good moments, some great videos. I don't know if you guys saw Boris Johnson doing a Vogue-style video where he did the 21 questions, and that worked down very well with a very different demographic. A lot of people in Westminster were saying, what the hell's he doing? And I say that you've never seen the Vogue video? Like 25 million people watch these videos from Vogue. But the key here is that that content is not designed to appeal to Westminster people. It's designed to appeal to the everyday person out in the country.